Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Metal Edition M09 Commander Leader, also known as the WeiJiang Fire Scorpion. This is unfortunately WeiJiang's final release and in my opinion is potentially one of their best releases yet. Now if you are in the market for adding this figure into your collection, he is available and in stock right now over at Icon Store, and for that I will leave a link down in the description box below, and be sure to use discount code Prime vs Prime for a discount off of your total order. So here we have the Fire Scorpion, aka Optimus Prime, based on his appearance from the Transformers Bumblebee movie, and in my opinion looking absolutely fantastic, with the market being absolutely flooded by third-party companies who are producing Bumblebee movie Optimus Primes. WeiJiang definitely had to do something special here in order to stand out from the crowd, and in my own personal opinion I definitely think that they were able to achieve that. I'm first of all going to be taking a look at the accessories that he includes, and then we'll go over the details of the Fire Scorpion himself. So starting off here firstly by taking a look at all of the accessories that are included with the Fire Scorpion. Really, he doesn't come with a great deal, however in my opinion he comes with more than what was seen in the movie, so that's definitely a bonus. Starting off with one of his most iconic accessories, here we have the Ion Blaster, and I think that once again WeiJiang have done a fantastic job in capturing its appearance from the Transformers Bumblebee movie. I think that the paintwork is really nicely done, especially for a third-party company. It definitely has got a significant amount of weathering applied to it and really does appear as if though it is metallic in its structure, although it is just a plastic piece. They have also gone the extra mile to engineer and sculpt a removable magazine clip, which does indeed have a sculpted in and painted bullet, which once again is a really nice attention to detail. This too also does have an LED feature, so if we turn to the underside you can see the battery compartment there as well as a switch, and once you do flick this switch on you can see that the end of the barrel will light up in a really awesome orange glow, which is fantastic for photography and display purposes, so that's a really nice attention to detail. We also do get an axe, and this is something that WeiJiang have just completely come up with themselves. This wasn't featured in the Transformers Bumblebee movie, however in my opinion if Optimus Prime from that movie was to wield an axe, I'm pretty sure it would look something like this, absolutely devastating, with some subtle design hues from the Generation 1 cartoon series. You can see that similarly to the Ion Blaster we've once again got that fantastic weathered effect. I really do think that that comes across very nicely, especially here on camera, and you can see that they have actually cast the main blade in a transparent orange plastic, which looks super cool, and we've also got some darker shades of orange there just to differentiate the detailings from the rest of the sculpt, so I think that all looks really nice. Even the handle there has been sculpted really nicely. And then as we take a look here at another accessory that he includes, this is actually a component of his vehicle mode, most noticeably the actual trailer hitch. However, WeiJiang here have utilised this in robot mode as being an almost tripod for you to actually take Optimus Prime's Ion Blaster and slide this into this section, and you can have Prime utilising the trailer hitch as a tripod, which I think is quite a cool use of parts. It just makes this piece here have some function within robot mode so that it's not just sitting off to the side. Once again, it is a parts former, but this is a very minute piece and is something that merely just adds to the overall look of the vehicle mode, so for me it's not an issue whatsoever, and I'm quite glad to see that WeiJiang did come up with this to do something in robot mode rather than just sitting off to the side and being a spare part. So really awesome accessories. He does also come with some interchangeable pieces. These here are very heavy die-cast smokestacks. These ones are a lot more straighter than what actually come mandatory on the figure. I personally don't necessarily like this design. I do prefer the design that does come mandatory fresh out of the packaging, but if you do wish for a more straighter look in terms of your smokestacks, then you definitely have the option here. So in terms of accessories, I think they're all really nice. The biggest highlights of course being the Energon axe as well as the Ion Blaster, and I think that the LED function there in the blaster is a really nice touch. And so now taking a look here at the Fire Scorpion himself, I believe that WeiJiang have done a fantastic job in detailing this figure. He really does look as if though he's just jumped straight off of the screen. The amount of sculpt work that we have got going on here for the mouth plate I think looks fantastic. You can see here all of the individually sculpted in lines to the mouth guard, very reminiscent to the design that we saw in the movie, and I think that the metallic silver as well as the slight copper highlights that we also have got going on here really does help in order to age the paint applications and just make them look more authentic to a real life representation. You can see that we've got some darker gunmetal here for the crest, and they've even gone the extra mile to actually dry brush with some silver paint here in order to make this appear battered and worn. As we turn here to the side of the helmet, that same paint application does continue to be seen, with some added here to where I presume the ear section of Optimus would be, and you can see that these antennae or these crest sections have also got some really nice silver dry brushing. As we turn him around to the back, that gunmetal can also be seen even further, with some of the detailings here being picked out in that really awesome darker grey. As we take a look here at the back of the figure, I think that the detailing on this is really, really remarkable. You can see that they've even gone the extra mile to actually sculpt in Optimus Prime's spine, which was definitely a very predominant design aspect of this character, which is something that not many third-party companies have been able to replicate. But it's great to see that WeiJiang here have tried their best, and in my opinion have done a really, really nice job. You can see that all of this silver dry brushing effect I think looks fantastic. It really does give you a very authentic vibe to this release. And as we take a look here at the shoulders, the smokestacks are indeed die cast, so they feel very durable. There is actually quite a considerable amount of die cast in this release as well, so he definitely does feel like a very weighty piece. As we take a look here at the paint applications for the shoulders, I think that all of this has come out really, really nicely, and I love all of the detailing here for the smokestacks. I think that the paintwork on them really, really does look spectacular, and you can see that we've also got some dry brushing here in order to make the shoulder look weathered and worn. And as we turn here to the bicep, all of the mechanical detailing can be seen, and even this detailing here on the side of the arm. And as we turn to the forearm as well, the mechanical detailing continues, and in my opinion really does set this apart from other third-party companies. This looks absolutely fantastic there with the yellow arrows, and all of the fingers of which are individually articulated have also been sculpted really, really nicely. My favourite aspect to the figure, and is an aspect that actually makes this particular release by WeiJiang win over the previously released third-party toys, is the torso. I really do love what they've got going on here for the torso. It's really in proportion, which is something that we haven't seen on some of the previous releases, of which I'll bring out for comparisons later on in the review. But you can see all of that fantastic silver dry brushing effect going on here, as well as the red paint applications. I really do think that they contrast rather nicely. These entire front truck windows here are completely die cast, so that's fantastic. You can see the sculpted in paint, and as we turn to the inside you can see all of the die cast in there. The figure does feel so weighty, which is a really satisfying feeling when handling him. As we turn him to the side, you can see that once again they've even gone the extra mile to sculpt in and paint some of the detailing there on the side, which perhaps you wouldn't be able to see due to the arm covering it, but we've got some fantastic detailings as well as some pistons and hydraulics. As we turn down to the arms once again, you can appreciate all of that fantastic sculpt work. And as we turn down here to the thighs and the crutch, my only gripe with this figure here in robot mode is the fact that the paint applications here on the thighs do chip really, really easily, which is so unfortunate. It doesn't appear as if though that WeiJiang have really tested the tolerances of their paint applications, as when just by moving this, and if this does bump into the hip skirt, the paint will chip off. Now this is a complete die cast piece, so I believe that perhaps the paint applications haven't merged all that well with the die cast material. Perhaps it would have been better if they would have just left this the colour of the actual metal, but nonetheless I still think that the detailing that we do have that remains is really, really nice. And once again, if you just take extra time whilst handling this figure, I'm pretty sure that you won't have any issues with chipping the paint whatsoever. As we take a look there at the inner section of the thigh, once again I believe that the paintwork as well as the sculpting and detailing looks fantastic, and even on the outer sections as well we've also got some of that same mechanical detailing. As we turn down now to the shins and also into the inner sections of the legs, the same detailing does continue, and it looks absolutely remarkable in my opinion. We've there got the hubcaps, which have also got the Cybertronian clips on, very reminiscent to me of the Batmobile design, the Batarang design. These can actually remove for a more coherent Earth mode look, and I will showcase that to you later on in the review. And then finally, as we turn down to the feet, I also think that the detailing on these is also really nice, as well as the super cool blue metallic paint that they've used. The base of the feet is indeed die cast, so once again this figure does feel incredibly weighty, and I do believe that there is actually quite a significant amount of die cast in the torso here with the truck windows and some internal die cast, and as stated before, the thighs are completely die cast as well as so are the feet. So in terms of weight and detailing, I think that it's fantastic. The only downside is the slight gripe that I have with the thighs, but as stated before, I'm pretty sure that with some extra care and attention that will be something that can easily be remedied. In terms of articulation, quite surprisingly he is well articulated, so the head is on a ball joint so it can look left to right as well as up and down. It can also tilt side to side. We do get a full 360 degree rotation here at the arm, and they can also hinge out to the sides, which is great to see. Not quite a full 90 degree bend there, which is slightly unfortunate. You can see that it does go to a slight angle. However, nonetheless I still think that the range of motion that we do get is more than adequate. We do get a full 360 degree rotation here at the bicep, as well as just a 90 degree bend there at the elbow. It would have been nice if we could have got a double joint out of that, but nonetheless, as stated with the upper arm articulation, I think that this here is more than adequate. We do have a full 360-degree rotation here at the wrist, seeing as it is on a hinge joint. All of the fingers here are individually articulated, so you can get some super funky looking poses with these, and they have also got 3 hinge joints in them as well. So really a great range of articulation here where the fingers are concerned, and the thumb too is also individually articulated on a ball joint, however this time only with a single hinge here at the knuckle. In terms of waist articulation, surprisingly he does indeed have an ab crunch, which was something that I was not expecting on this figure whatsoever, so that is fantastic to see that we do indeed get one of those. He can rotate the full 360 degrees. All of this hip armour here can move out of the way in order to accommodate the range of motion here for the legs, so we do have fantastic ratchet joints out to about that far, and then as we just hinge the back skirt armour out of the way, they can also ratchet all the way backwards, which is great, and they can also hinge out to the sides. Unfortunately, the tolerances here on my copy are not the best. However, if you just take a screwdriver to this, I'm sure that you'll be able to tighten up that joint. It does appear as if though they were going to actually add a ratchet joint into this. However, as this is WeiJiang's last piece, I'm not entirely sure of whether or not they were rushed for time with this release and just really wanted to get it out to the market, but nonetheless, it would have been nice to see a ratchet joint, but as stated before, I'm pretty sure that you can either unscrew that and tighten the joint yourself, or just tighten the screw up. We do get a really nice rotation here at the upper thigh, as well as a double ratcheted joint here for the knee, so you can see that that just goes past slightly 90 degrees, which is awesome. And then as we turn finally down now to the foot articulation, the foot here can pivot forwards and backwards, as well as rock side to side, and we also do get, also quite surprisingly, some slight toe articulation, so that too can also pivot forwards and backwards. So in terms of articulation, I think that it's absolutely fantastic, especially for a figure of this scale, and seeing as how well they've actually managed to get his robot mode to look to the on-screen CGI model, as well as how awesome he looks when transformed into truck mode, I definitely think that this is one of the more successful renditions of a Transformers Bumblebee movie, Optimus Prime. And so now turning very quickly to the integration of some of his accessories, so you can see here that on the blaster we do have a very standard MPM-esque tab with that will slide into a slot on Optimus Prime's hand, so you just want to open the fingers up, align that tab and slot up appropriately, tab that in really nice and securely, and then just wrap the fingers around so that we get a more natural look, and then just rotate the thumb around, and the actual index finger itself can push through to make it look as if though he is indeed about to pull the trigger, which I think looks really, really nice. Setting that off to the side, however, and bringing out his axe, this also does hold in a very similar way. However, if you don't wish for the figure to hold this, we can actually store this on the back. So here we do have a slot that this tab here will just peg into, really nice and snugly, so you can have the axe being stored on Optimus Prime's back, and just giving you a quick look at how that looks from the front. Personally, I do think that that looks really awesome, and I just wish that this version of Optimus did wield an axe in the Bumblebee movie. However, there is always the 2022 movie that could definitely give us this type of look. But nonetheless, in terms of weapon integration here for robot mode, it is exactly as you would imagine it. Nothing really spectacular. However, in my opinion, I think that he does wield them really, really well. And so now turning here for a third-party Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime size comparison, here we have the new WeiJiang version compared next to what was my favourite rendition of a transformable Optimus Prime from Bumblebee, that being the Toy World version. And you can definitely see here in what I stated earlier on in regards to the proportions. I think that the proportions on the new WeiJiang version are definitely vastly superior than that of the Toy World version. I actually didn't realise how squat and almost compressed the waist of the Toy World version is when compared to here next to the WeiJiang version, and in my opinion this here is definitely the look that we saw in the movie than compared here to the rather more squashed chest that we do have there for the Toy World. Now don't get me wrong, I still do think that the Toy World figure is a fantastic piece, and it is still one of my favourite third-party figures of all time. However, if I was going for movie accuracy, and if I had to choose between the two, I would probably opt to go with the WeiJiang version, as not only do I believe that the proportions are better here on the WeiJiang version, but the transformation is actually a lot more simpler than what we get here for the Toy World version, and both of them have very similar looking truck mode. So if you're looking for just a very fun, really faithful looking rendition of the Bumblebee movie Prime, then I highly recommend to go here with the WeiJiang release. However, if you're looking for a more static piece on the shelf, then the Toy World one here is probably your best bet. But just giving you a comparison there in terms of the actual paint schemes as well, you can see that the colours are a lot more muted there on the Toy World version than compared here to the more vibrant colours that we do have for the WeiJiang. And I do also actually prefer the head sculpt there for the WeiJiang. The elongated ears, I think, is definitely a more accurate look than compared to the more, once again, compressed head sculpt that we got with the Toy World release, which isn't me detracting anything from this release. As stated before, I still do really think that this is a great figure. However, in regards to how both of these look, I do believe that it was probably going to be up to your own personal preference of which company you believe did it better. In my personal opinion, I think that both of these figures are great in their own regards. There are some aspects of where I think the Toy World version slightly beats the WeiJiang version, but then there are also some certain elements where I believe that the WeiJiang version is slightly superior than compared here next to the Toy World release. Before we take a look at the transformation, something else that I just very quickly want to point out is that this figure here does indeed have an LED function incorporated into his head sculpt. So to turn him around here to the back, you can see that we do have this switch that when toggled to the right will activate the LEDs and they will light up in a really awesome, very electric blue vibrant LED, and I think that looks fantastic and really does help to bring this figure alive when on display or when just taking general photos of this. I definitely think that that's a super nice touch, and once again is something that they didn't have to do, but I'm just so glad that they did. And so now turning to the transformation here for Fire Scorpion, as stated whilst I was doing my comparisons between this figure and the Toy World Freedom Leader, the transformation for this is actually quite surprisingly simplistic, especially seeing as how awesome he looks here for his robot mode. And that's not to say that he has a rather overly simplified transformation, it just means that his transformation definitely is nowhere near as complex as some of the other previous third-party Optimus Prime releases based on his appearance from Bumblebee. So to begin with, what I like to do is rotate the waist around so that the front is now facing the back. We can then turn our attention here to the arms, and you're just going to want to open this cavity up, ensure that the thumb is collapsed down and that all of the fingers are compressed. Rotate the wrist around now and just proceed to fold this into this section and collapse that there over the top. Repeat the same process here for the opposite side. So open that up, ensuring that the thumb is nice and aligned and all of the fingers are compressed, and then just begin to hinge that all in there. Collapse these pieces and now lift the arms up and come to where the armpit sections would be and attach this section here on either side. So we can then take the front of the chest here, open this section up and then turn around here to the back and just hinge these pieces here. And as you do that, you can see that we have already begun to loosen up this piece, as these two tabs here do actually peg into the sides of these. So with that now detached, it will just loosen all of this section up, which will then allow us to take this tab and port this into this slot. So just align that up and snap that nice and securely into place. With that now done, we can then take these sections here and then bring those all the way down, and as we do so, rotate these panels out. So just to show you on this side once more, rotate this down and then you can see a slot there that this tab here will snap into. And then the same can be said here for the opposite side. So just snap that really nice and securely into place and then come to this section and just fold this up. We're then going to want to take this whole piece here and lift this up. And as we do so, rotate the front of the truck around and then repeat the same process. So rotate this up and then just rotate this section. This piece now is where things get slightly difficult in terms of clearance, as we're going to want to pull the front of the truck down. And as we do so, you're going to want to fold out these small panels on both sides. So just hinge that down and then proceed to bring this all the way over, trying your best to maneuver things out of the way in order to avoid paint chipping. However, with a release like this, with such tight tolerances and clearance, I think that it perhaps may be inevitable, but once that is done, we can then proceed to align the panels up and snap all of this nice and securely. And now just lowering the camera down and turning our attention to the head. Similarly to this whole front of the truck, this is where clearance is once again a slight issue, as you're going to want to pull this section out slightly and try your best to not bump the antennae of Optimus Prime's helmet into this piece. But you can see that with just a slight wriggle, that all of that will tab in very nice and securely. We can then take these sections here and bring those there to the front and just conceal those, and all of that there will secure very nicely, just ensuring that all of these panels here do stay tabbed in. They will probably more than likely pop out later on. We can then take these sections and just fold them underneath. Repeat the same process here now for the opposite side. And turning our attention to this whole assembly, what I recommend doing here is taking these arms and bringing them backwards. But before we do that, you're going to want to hinge this section out and then fold up this clip. And now proceed to lift this up, bring this all the way around, take the arm here and just tuck this into that cavity. And you can see as we turn around here that there is a tab that this will slide into. So just shoot this in, and that will snap in there really nicely. Take this piece here, hinge this out to the sides, and then this here will collapse down, and you can see how this piece does fill out this gap. Repeat this exact same process here for the opposite side, so just hinge this out and then fold down this section. We can then lift this piece up, rotate this around, and then just according the forearm into the front of the truck, very reminiscent to how some of the previous third-party companies have done in terms of transformation. And then once again, that same slot and tab will apply, so just try your best to bring this down, snap that nice and securely into place, hinge this panel out of the way, and then slide that in. Take this piece, lift it up and rotate it all the way around and snap that in, and then take these pieces and just hinge those down there on these double hinge joints. We can then turn our attention to this side, and now this is rather complex in the way that this all folds out, but you can see that you just want to hinge that down and then lift this piece here over the top, and then you're just going to want to slightly arch this back, and that will shoot in there, and you can begin to align that up. We can then fold this section down, flip out the side view mirror, and now just try your best to align all of this up, ensuring that everything here stays nice and tabbed in. And then turn around here to the opposite side, fold out the side view mirror, and repeat the same process here for the opposite side. And then come to this section and just fold all of this out. Very, very clever engineering here for this section, I believe. I really wasn't expecting all of this to actually compact in a way that it does, but once again, just arch this all backwards. You may want to take this and just bring this forwards to slide that tab in, but once it goes in there, there is no coming out for it whatsoever, and you can see that once again this tab will slide into this slot. So just hinge this all the way down, trying your best to align that up, tabbing that in, and that is the front section, or the front of the cab, fully transformed. Just giving that all a nice squeeze so that everything does stay into position. We can now turn our attention here to this lower back region. So this is actually quite straightforward as well. So to begin with, I recommend pulling these pieces down, and then what I like to do is take the leg here, fold this back and hinge this section out, and then lift this up, and then this piece here will tuck in, and then you can just take that and conceal that in. Repeat the same process here, so bring this down, fold this section out, and then we can lift this up, slide that in there, and then conceal that. We can then turn our attention to the inner section of Optimus's leg, and then you're going to want to pop this up and then lift this section, and that will hinge all the way to the back. So repeat the same process, lift this section up, fold this there all the way to the back, and then fold out the tail lights on both sides. This one here is in very nice and securely, and hinge those back. And as we turn to the underside, just take this and compress those, and repeat the same process here on both sides. Take the feet now, and this is rather complex in the way in which you have to do this, as everything has to be aligned up appropriately. So you have to rotate this more or less to this angle, and then begin to hinge this, and it will just sort of slide in there. So you can see that that does just slide into that slot, and repeat the same process here for this side. So just slide that in there and tab that into place. We can then bring this down, and you can see a slot there that will peg into this tab. So snap that into place, snap that into place, and then just combine the two halves, so snap it in there at the top, and then finally here for the back, and then just ensuring that everything is nice and aligned. We can rotate the smokestacks to our so desire. We're then going to want to bring in the trailer hitch section, and then we're going to fold this piece up, take these here and fold these up, and then just collapse all of this, elongate this section, and then bringing this piece back in. You can see two tabs here and here, as well as a slot, that these two slots will slide into these two tabs, and then this slot, this tab here, will slide into. So just snap all of this in, and then just come to this section, give that all a nice squeeze, and here we have the Fire Scorpion fully transformed up into his awesome looking truck mode. And so now taking a look here at the Fire Scorpion fully transformed up into his truck mode, I believe that WeiJiang have done a fantastic job in giving him an equally as accurate looking vehicle mode. I believe this to be as good if not better than that of the Toy World version that we got, and this is a lot more simpler in terms of the transformation than that Toy World version, and I believe that it cleans up and looks so awesome. As we take a look there at the detailing, especially here at the front of the truck, I think that this whole front cab section looks fantastic with all of this lovely detailing here for the grille and the fantastic, very reflective silver paint applications. You can see there the window wipers as well as the side view mirrors, and all of these white paint applications have come out incredibly crisp. As we turn around here to the side, considering how much panel forming goes on here, I think that the panels are very nice and cohesive, and it doesn't look too out of place whatsoever, and you can pick out some really nice silver details there, which I all think looks really awesome. As we turn once again here to the smokestacks, which as stated before are interchangeable with more straightened ones, I do think that the detailing on these looks awesome, and I do like how they've tried their best to actually conceal this whole back area. This is actually an area of which many third-party companies are unable to replicate, but here I think that it works quite nicely, despite it using secondary components. This whole piece is a secondary piece that you do insert over the top and isn't completely integrated to the actual transformation, but nonetheless the trailer hitch here I think works really well, and you can see that the detailing I think matches what we have here. Just compressing this slightly more, you can pick out some really nice detailing such as this silver paint application as well as the red tail lights as well as the metallic blue tail lights. So I think that looks really awesome. As stated before, if I just bring in a flat screwdriver, as it's rather difficult to actually remove these, you can remove these hubcaps in order to give him more earth mode ones. So you just want to remove those, and you can see that once those are removed that you are left with a much more earth mode looking vehicle mode. However, in my personal opinion, this doesn't bother me too much whatsoever, so I do just prefer to leave the Cybertronian hubcaps on there. The tyres are made out of a plastic, so we don't get any type of rubbery material on these, which is unfortunate. And as we just turn under to the underside, you can see how he all compacts there. So really and truly a very nice looking vehicle. It does roll really nicely as well, and you can see all of the tyres are able to roll, which is really awesome to see. So in terms of vehicle mode, I think that they did a great job. Transformation is definitely a lot more simplistic than compared to that of the Toy World version, which in my opinion is the only other third-party figure that could potentially rival this. I think that the Toy World version and here the WeiJiang are probably the best transformable pieces that we have gotten in terms of a Transformers Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime, and in terms of the enjoyability aspect, I think here that the WeiJiang might be slightly better in terms of an overall figure. The detailing here I think is equally as good, and I think the truck mode here looks just as good as stated before, if not better. So in all, a really awesome release. And so, some final thoughts. I love this. I think that WeiJiang have done a great job with their Fire Scorpion. Unfortunately, I do believe that this is probably their best release, and it is their last release, which is such a shame, as I believe that we could have potentially have gotten some great figures from them, as we have done in the past. Focusing here, though, on Fire Scorpion, I think that his robot mode looks great. There is no denying that it is supposed to be the Transformers Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime. A great design, which in my opinion has been captured here by a great third-party company. The robot mode looks fantastic. The detailing and the sculpt work is definitely where this figure shines for me. I think that the torso detailing is mind-blowing. All of the detail that they've got going on for the side section of Optimus Prime's torso as well as the inner sections of the legs I think is really a nice attention to detail. The head sculpt also I think is very faithful to the movie. That it seems to be something that not many third-party companies can replicate, but here with the WeiJiang release I think that they were able to. The transformation also is something which I think is better than compared to the Toy World version. As stated, I believe that both of them are equally as accurate when it comes to their vehicle modes, and the transformation for this one is definitely a lot more simplistic than compared to the Toy World version, which in my opinion was rather a chore to transform. A few downsides that I do have with this release is in terms of the paint applications and the tolerances. You saw that when in robot mode, the paint applications here for the thighs do chip considerably easily. It was literally only me moving the leg up and down and slightly rubbing against the skirt armour in which these were able to chip. However, this is something that can be easily remedied just with you adding some additional paint applications, or if you're so inclined you could completely remove the paint apps and just have, in my opinion, the really nice looking base colour of the diecast. I honestly don't think that it looks too out of place whatsoever. The tolerances I have found for some of the joints to be slightly loose, but as stated I'm pretty sure that that could be easily remedied with just taking some floor polish and tightening up some of the screws. I do believe that some of the issues that I have with this release are probably down to the fact that this was perhaps slightly rushed in terms of some of the final processes, but nonetheless still a really nice looking release by WeiJiang, and in my opinion is one of the best transformable versions of the Optimus Prime from Bumblebee. So with all that being said, I really do hope that you enjoyed my review. If you are in the market for adding this figure to your collection, he is in stock right now over at Icon Store, and be sure to use the code Prime vs Prime for a total discount off of your order. Links for Icon Store will be included down in the description box below. I really do hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section, and also be sure to let me know on what you think of this figure and whether or not you're disappointed and upset of the closure of WeiJiang. I thank you all for watching my review, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.